So now that you understand the characteristics of autism, let's get down to some practical strategies. Remember, students with autism have impairments in the communication, social, and restricted patterns of behaviour domains. Remember too that the world can be a confusing and sometimes frightening place, as they have difficulty predicting others' behaviour and don't always have a sense of cause and effect. They also often have sensory sensitivity and may suffer heightened states of anxiety. Remembering these characteristics will allow you to prevent or minimise the students' outbursts and therefore maximise theirs and your class's learning opportunities. Although students with autism often feel emotions very deeply, they have great difficulty distinguishing emotions displayed by others. So keep emotional displays to a minimum and adopt a matter-of-fact manner. I've noticed that a number of my students have suddenly improved their behaviour and levels of anxiety when they've changed to a new teacher. That's assuming transition was handled appropriately. And this seems to be when they have moved to a teacher who is less touchy-feely and is more assertive in a calm way, and who doesn't take the student's behaviour personally. Because, trust me, the student with autism is not targeting you with their behaviour. They're just trying to get order in their lives. One of the most significant ways to help a student with autism get order in their lives is to be consistent, as this helps the student to be able to predict what's going to happen next. Students with autism don't like surprises. Announcing, "Guess what? We're having cake today instead of bread," even if they prefer cake to bread, may absolutely ruin a student's day. Students with autism can also be rule-bound. They find rules comforting. One of the teachers I know in a secondary school made a rule that Peter, not his real name, had to go through the same routine with her at the beginning of every science lesson. They went through a simple ritual greeting, and then he had to go to his desk, get out his materials, and start on the first problem she'd already put on the board for him. While he was getting on with his problem, she had a chance to get on with the rest of the class started on their work for the day, and Peter would have a chance to calm down after the stress of the hustle and bustle in the corridor getting to class. If Peter tried to interrupt her before he had worked on his first problem, she would remind him of the rule and that she would attend to him when it was completed, helping him to regulate his need to have her attention immediately. Even though your student with autism may apparently have good language skills, visual schedules will assist the student to be able to predict what comes next and thus avoid unnecessary anxiety. Visual schedule will also reduce the need for verbal instructions so the student can be more independent. And remember, less is more when talking to a student with autism, especially if they're in a heightened state. Where possible, give simple step directions or provide visual cues to the steps in multi-part directions. Students with autism need to be taught the rules of communication explicitly. They won't pick it up by osmosis. A number of my teachers have found plotting the student against the general capabilities in the Western Australian curriculum gives them a really good starting point for knowing which communication skills to teach. Build breaks into the day and include them on the visual schedule so the student can start to regulate their own feelings. It's really important to teach a student how to manage their own emotions and behaviour when they're in a calm state. One of the first things to teach is to recognise the physiological changes which occur in their bodies when they're happy, frightened or angry, and practice strategies that move them to a more pleasant state. It may be as simple as taking a few deep breaths, counting to 10, or standing up for a short while. If they get too heightened, they may need to get out of the situation altogether. I often use the term, give the student a get out of jail free card, where they can give you a card or an agreed visual signal that they're getting heightened and need to get out of the situation. This is a good self-regulation tool and should be rewarded when students use it. Many students I've worked with respond well to mood thermometers to help them manage their feelings. Basically, the mood thermometer works by giving the student a visual reminder of where they are at, and they can point to the thermometer to explain their feelings when they're too heightened to use their language appropriately. There are many variations on mood thermometers, from a simple colour-coded thermometer, a 5 or 10-point scale, to thermometers with descriptions of the emotions and/or emoticons. The thermometer could also have a visual of the strategy to use, depending on where they are on the scale. For example, deep breaths, take a walk around the classroom, change activity, go and get a drink. You can find one to suit your student by typing mood thermometer into Google. If the student does get into a heightened state and begins to behave inappropriately, use distractors, change the activity, or talk about something they're really interested in. Pick your battles with students. Focus on the priority behaviours, those that are a safety concern and/or are interfering most with the student's learning and social interactions. Students with autism are very literal and often will stop a behaviour when you tell them to, but don't know what to do in its place. So, for example, if a student is hitting others, it may be that they want something the other student has and has no other strategy to get it. Say, no hitting. Ask Mary if you can have a turn with the toy. Give very specific feedback about the behaviours you are praising. It's no good telling Johnny he's a good boy. Tell him why he's a good boy. He is sitting up nicely. He's taking care with his work. He's trying hard to calm down. His printing's beautifully neat. People with autism often also have difficulty generalising their skills to new situations. So skills need to be practised and reinforced in a variety of settings. Just because they can use their manners in the classroom doesn't mean they know those manners apply in other contexts and even which context they might apply in. The manners need to be taught explicitly where they need to be used. There are many apps which are highly motivating for students with autism, which can be used as teaching tools and/or rewards. Technology can also be used to help them get their ideas down or for alternative assessments. And lastly, one of the most important strategies is to anticipate change for the student and prepare for the transition. A visual schedule can be used to remind a student that they're going to change activity or location soon, and so give them time to adjust to the change. If they're going into a new situation, explain what is going to happen there. Take them there beforehand if possible, or provide pictures if not. It helps if they hear about the change on more than one occasion. You will find more information on iPad apps in Lecture 8, Tools to Aid Student Learning, and more information on autism and strategies in Lecture 14, Additional Links and Resources.